The journey begins when you suddenly recognize that you've been living as a stranger in your own life, a moment Jung called the confrontation with the unconscious. This awakening happens when your authentic self rises from the depths and demands to be heard. Most people spend their lives believing a devastating lie. To be loved, you must become what others want. To belong, you must abandon who you truly are. Over time, you become a chameleon, constantly changing to meet the expectations of parents, teachers, friends, partners, bosses, and society. Jung called this wearing the persona, a social mask that initially protects you but eventually becomes a prison. Behind this mask, your authentic self, what Jung called the self, waits with increasing urgency. What we deny doesn't disappear, but grows stronger in the shadows until it eventually breaks through. The journey of authenticity. The moment of awakening. There is no dramatic announcement when your authentic self breaks through, just a quiet moment when something inside finally cracks. It might happen during a mundane activity when you suddenly see your life with terrifying clarity. The relationships where you've abandoned yourself, the soul-draining job, the dreams you've buried. Jung described this as meeting the shadow, encountering the parts of ourselves we've disowned, not just our darkness, but our light, power, truth, and potential. Though nothing in your external world has changed, everything feels different. The painful recognition. The most painful revelation isn't what others have done to you, but what you've done to yourself. Every time you swallowed your truth to keep peace, dimmed your light, or said, "It's fine," when you were suffering, you were betraying yourself. Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, because it means facing a devastating truth. No one abandoned you more consistently than you did. You thought your sacrifices would eventually be rewarded, but instead, you became a ghost in your own life. Present but unseen, speaking but unheard, giving but never replenished. Now, you face a choice. Continue betraying yourself to keep others comfortable, or choose yourself, knowing everything will change." Many people retreat into the comfort of their cage, telling themselves, "Maybe tomorrow," but deep down, you know there will never be a perfect time to save yourself. The world responds. When you first choose yourself, the world doesn't celebrate. It resists. People who were comfortable with your compliance suddenly find you difficult. Relationships built on your self-sacrifice begin to crumble. You're labeled selfish, ungrateful, or changed. Jung called this the collective resistance to individuation, the social pressure to remain small. Your awakening threatens everyone who expected you to remain the same. Parents who defined themselves by your obedience, partners who built a life on your compromises, friends who knew exactly what role you'd play. When you stop playing your assigned part, you disrupt entire systems. You become dangerous not because you're cruel, but because you're free. You stop saying yes when you mean no, accepting crumbs when you hunger for a feast, explaining yourself to people who aren't listening, and apologizing for taking up space. This resistance is actually a sign you're on the right path. The friction isn't failure, but the sound of old chains breaking, the inner battlefield. The external resistance is just the beginning. The real war happens inside you. Jung discovered that when we begin to individuate, we face not just external opposition, but internal sabotage from what he called complexes, aspects of your psyche that fight to maintain the status quo. Your mind floods with doubts. Who do you think you are? You're being selfish. What if you end up alone? These aren't random thoughts, but the guardians of your old identity, disguising themselves as wisdom, caution, or love, when they're actually fear wearing a mask of concern. This battle is what Jung called the hero's journey, facing the dragons of your own making. The voices get loudest right as you're about to break free, intensifying when freedom is within reach. The way out isn't to fight harder, but to listen deeper. These doubts and fears aren't enemies, but parts of you terrified of change. Instead of fighting them, you acknowledge them. I hear you. I see your fear, but I'm not that child anymore. I'm not powerless anymore, and we're not staying here anymore. The sacred solitude. As you embark on this journey of authenticity, you encounter an unexpected challenge: solitude. Not loneliness, the painful absence of connection, but solitude, the healing presence of yourself. As you shed inauthentic relationships, set boundaries, and speak truths that some refuse to hear, you find yourself alone more often. Initially, this feels like punishment or proof that choosing yourself was a mistake. Jung saw it differently. Loneliness does not come from having no people about one, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself. When you stop communicating falsely, some people fall away, but the connections that remain are real. In the quiet, you begin to hear yourself, not your thoughts about what others think of you, but your actual thoughts, genuine feelings, and authentic desires. You discover your own rhythm and preferences. You meet parts of yourself you never knew existed. Gradually, something miraculous happens. You fall in love with your own company. The silence that once terrified you becomes your sanctuary. The solitude that felt like punishment becomes your power. You realize you were never afraid of being alone, but of being abandoned, and the person you most feared would leave you was yourself. The synchronicities begin. When you align with your authentic self, the universe begins responding differently. Doors that were closed suddenly open. People who see and value the real you appear. Opportunities that match your true gifts emerge. Resources you need show up precisely when needed. Jung called this synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that can't be explained by cause and effect. It's as if the world has been waiting for you to become real, and when you finally do, life meets you halfway. Synchronicity isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it arrives as disruption. A relationship ends, a job disappears, a plan falls apart. These aren't failures but redirections, not punishments but protections, not losses but clearings for what wants to be born. Your authentic self knows where you need to go, even when your conscious mind is still holding on to where you've been. Like water flowing downstream, synchronicity helps you find your true path, even when it looks nothing like what you planned. The shadow integration. As your journey deepens, you face perhaps the most challenging invitation: embracing your shadow. Jung defined the shadow as all the parts of yourself you've rejected, denied, or disowned. Not just your darkness, but also your light that was too bright, too big, too much for others. Your anger labeled inappropriate, your joy called too loud, your boundaries deemed selfish, your needs dismissed as demanding, your desires judged excessive, your power that made others uncomfortable. You buried these parts to survive, but they didn't disappear. They went underground, running your life without your awareness through unexplained reactions, repeated patterns and triggers that seemed to come from nowhere. As you choose yourself fully, these fragments begin returning home. Not always gently or conveniently, but as unexpected emotions, dreams, sudden insights, or overreactions to seemingly small events. The shadow doesn't knock politely, it erupts and demands integration. The work isn't to perfect these parts or make them socially acceptable, but to welcome them as essential aspects of your wholeness. Your anger isn't destructive, but the guardian of your boundaries. Your sadness isn't weakness, but the depth of your heart's capacity. Your fear isn't cowardice, but ancient wisdom, protecting what matters. Your desire isn't shameful, but life force moving through you. Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Your healing doesn't come from transcending your shadow, but from embracing it. Your freedom doesn't come from perfecting yourself, but from accepting your whole messy, complicated humanity. When you integrate these disowned parts, they stop controlling you from the shadows. The energy you spent hiding, denying and repressing them becomes available for living. You become not perfect but whole, not flawless but fully alive. The emotional integration revelation. The greatest revelation of Jung's work is that your wounds are not problems to be solved, but messages trying to be heard. Your anxiety isn't weakness, but your body telling you you're living out of alignment with your values. Your depression isn't broken chemistry, but your soul's protest against a life too small for your spirit. Your anger isn't inappropriate, but your energy rising to protect what matters. Your loneliness isn't isolation, but your heart calling for authentic connection. We've been taught to see these feelings as enemies to be conquered, to medicate them, distract from them, positive think them away, to label them as disorders or dysfunctions. But Jung discovered that these difficult emotions aren't the problem. They're the solution. They are your inner compass, pointing toward wholeness, your psyche's natural healing process already in motion. When you stop running from these feelings and instead turn toward them with curiosity, asking not, "How do I get rid of this?" but, "What is this trying to teach me?" everything changes. The pain becomes your guide, the wounds become your teachers, the sensitivities become your gifts. This is the alchemy Jung spoke of, transforming your darkest experiences into your greatest wisdom. Your trauma becomes your testimony. Your sensitivity becomes your superpower. Your difference becomes your contribution. Your breakdown becomes your breakthrough. This transformation happens not by forcing, fixing, or transcending your humanity, but through radical acceptance of all that you are. As Jung said, the acceptance of oneself is the essence of the whole moral problem and the epitome of a whole outlook on life. The people who walk this path of self-acceptance don't just heal themselves, they become living permission for others to do the same. Their authenticity creates a field where others feel safe to remove their own masks. Their self-compassion shows others how to be gentle with their own wounds. Their courage inspires others to face their own fears. When you free yourself from Lao, the rebirth. As integration deepens, you enter what Jung called the rebirth, emerging as your whole, authentic self. This isn't about becoming perfect, but about being real, messy, complex, beautiful, and entirely your own. The transformed you isn't necessarily louder, more successful, or more impressive. Often you're quieter, more grounded, more at peace. You laugh more easily because you're no longer holding tension. You love more freely because you no longer fear abandonment. You create without seeking permission because you trust your voice. You speak without constantly editing yourself because you've made peace with who you are. The changes others notice might seem subtle. You pause before responding, say no without over-explaining, express needs without apology, hold boundaries without guilt, receive compliments without deflection, make choices based on inner knowing rather than external approval. But the changes you feel within are seismic. The constant inner critic grows quieter. The need to control loosens its grip. The fear of judgment no longer drives your decisions. The exhaustion of pretending fades away. You stop having the same arguments, attracting the same relationships, repeating the same patterns, not because you've perfected yourself, but because you've befriended yourself. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. It's not an achievement, but something you allow, returning to what was always true before the world taught you otherwise. The people who truly belong in your life celebrate this authentic version of you. Those who loved you only for your masks either adapt or naturally fade away, not because you rejected them, but because you refuse to keep rejecting yourself. Choosing yourself isn't a one-time event, but a daily practice, a moment-by-moment choice to honor your truth, even when it would be easier not to. Some days you'll speak your truth with courage, other days you'll slip into old patterns. The difference is that now you notice and have the power to choose again." The collective healing. As your individual healing deepens, your transformation begins to affect everyone around you, not because you're preaching or pushing, but because you've changed the field. Jung recognized that we participate in what he called the collective unconscious, the shared psychic inheritance of humanity. When you heal your personal wounds, you contribute to healing collective wounds. When you integrate your shadow, you help illuminate the collective shadow. When you choose authenticity over performance, you create space for others to do the same. You'll see this happen in real time. A friend confides their true feelings after witnessing your honesty. A family member begins setting boundaries after respecting yours. A colleague pursues their passion after watching you honor yours. A child feels safe, expressing their uniqueness because you've embraced your own. Your journey becomes an unspoken invitation. Your freedom becomes a silent permission slip. Your courage becomes contagious. Jung observed that the salvation of the world consists in the salvation of the individual soul, not because you alone can save the world, but because the world is made of individuals like you, each choosing truth or lies, authenticity or performance, love or fear. As this ripple effect expands, you experience a profound sense of meaning, not the fleeting happiness from external achievements, but the deep, unshakable meaning that comes from living in alignment with your truth. You no longer need everyone to like you because you genuinely like yourself. You no longer fear judgment because you've stopped judging yourself through others' eyes. You no longer chase distraction because you're no longer running from yourself. Instead, you feel a quiet, steady flame of purpose, a sense that your life isn't random, but uniquely yours to live. This is what Jung called individuation, becoming the specific, one-of-a-kind expression of humanity that only you can be, not separate from others, but distinctly yourself within the human family. The ongoing journey. Transformation isn't a destination, but a continual unfolding. Jung spent his entire life exploring the psyche, and even in his final years spoke of himself as a work in progress, because the self isn't static, it's always becoming. The journey of choosing yourself isn't about reaching perfect enlightenment, but about bringing more awareness to each moment, more compassion to each struggle, more authenticity to each interaction. There will be days when you embody your truth effortlessly, and days when you fall back into old patterns. The difference is that now, these regressions don't define or derail you. They become opportunities for deeper awareness. Each time you notice yourself slipping into people-pleasing, perfectionism, or performance, you have a new chance to choose again, to return home to yourself. Jung wrote, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." This choice isn't made once, but again and again in thousands of small moments. When you tell the truth instead of saying what's expected, honor your needs instead of ignoring them, express your feelings instead of bottling them up, pursue your dreams instead of deferring them, set boundaries instead of abandoning them, stand in your worth instead of proving it. These aren't grand, heroic gestures, but quiet revolutions, private victories, sacred moments between you and your soul, Over time, they build a life that feels like yours, a life that reflects your values, honors your needs, expresses your gifts, and tells your truth. A life of integrity, not perfection, but wholeness. As we complete this exploration of Jung's wisdom, 3 simple but profound truths can serve as lanterns for your path. Your worth was never in question. You were born worthy and will die worthy. Everything in between is just you remembering what was never actually forgotten. The need to earn love, prove value, justify existence. These are learned beliefs, not inherent truths. Nothing about you needs fixing. Your sensitivity isn't too much. It's your gift. Your intensity isn't overwhelming. It's your power. Your complexity isn't confusing. It's your depth. Your differences aren't flaws. They're your unique contribution. The parts you've been trying to change, control, or hide aren't obstacles to your wholeness. They are your wholeness, waiting to be embraced. This journey isn't about becoming someone better, but about unbecoming all that isn't truly you. Removing the layers of shoulds and supposed tos until you stand, finally, as yourself. As Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Not who others want you to be or who you think you should be, but who you are right now in all your complex, contradictory, beautiful humanity. This is the revolution that changes everything, not out in the world, though the world will be touched by it, but in your own heart, mind, body, and soul, in the quiet center where truth has been waiting to be acknowledged. That you are enough, that you matter, that your life is yours to live, that your voice deserves to be heard, that your needs deserve to be met, that your boundaries deserve to be respected, that your dreams deserve to be pursued, not someday when you're better, stronger, more prepared, but today, exactly as you are. The painful feelings you've been running from aren't trying to hurt you, they're trying to heal you. The voice inside that whispers for something more isn't discontent. It's your soul calling you home. This journey will demand your courage, honesty, and willingness to stand alone when necessary. There will be days when the old safety of masks and people-pleasing calls you back. Remember, the pain of remaining the same will eventually exceed the pain of transformation. The discomfort of authenticity is temporary. The suffering of self-betrayal is eternal. Choose yourself. Choose your truth. Choose the path that feels like yours, even if no one else understands it yet. The moment you choose yourself is the moment your real life begins, and once you taste that freedom, nothing else will ever satisfy you again. Remember, the life you were born to live is waiting patiently for you to choose it. Not tomorrow, not when you're ready, not when everything is perfect, but now, in all your glorious, imperfect, authentic humanity. Choose you.